Ever since she moved into the Ravenbrook apartment complex, Melanie had been curious about her neighbor across the hall. She had noticed quite early on that the woman never made a sound. It was not that Melanie was nosy or overly curious. Living in a city as bustling as Medford, silence was a rare find, and she wasn't accustomed to it. Every evening, through the narrow slit of her kitchen blinds, she could see the shadow of the neighbor flitting about. Tall, slender, with flowing robes that seemed to shimmer through the glass, the woman always moved gracefully, yet silently. Fascinated, Melanie often found herself wondering about her neighbor's life, her job, her hobbies, her very existence in the echoing silence of the building. One evening, as the cruel winter descended prematurely, its winds howling like a wild beast outside, Melanie decided to break the silence. Armed with a freshly baked loaf of banana bread, a soothing ritual she had mastered during the lockdown, she mustered up the courage to stride across the hallway to her neighbor. When she knocked, the door creaked open almost immediately, though there was no sound of footsteps approaching. Her neighbor stood there, but something felt off. Her movements, though smooth, were too calculated. Her expression, though welcoming, bore an unsettling stillness. "Hello," Melanie said, unsure of how to begin. "I'm Melanie, your neighbor. I brought some bread." The woman's eyes glinted strangely in the dim light of the hallway. Her lips moved, yet what escaped was not a voice as much as it was an echo. Hollow, distant, as though spoken through layers of time itself. "You can't hear it yet," she said, her words sending an unexpected shiver down Melanie's spine. "But it's coming. They always find a way to get inside." Melanie stepped back, her instincts overwhelmed by a growing unease. It wasn't just the eerie silence that cloaked her neighbor, but something beyond comprehension, as though the very air thickened around them. "I think I should," Melanie stammered. Before she could finish, the hallway was engulfed by shadows, sliding along the walls like dark serpents. As the shadows coalesced and flowed towards her apartment, Melanie's heart thundered with the sudden dread of the unknown. The neighbor stood still, impassive and timeless, as though she were merely an observer to the unfolding event. But to Melanie, her own apartment now felt miles away, unreachable and unsafe. With a fraught glance back at the woman, whose eyes glowed with an unsettling knowledge, Melanie rushed towards her door, the loaf forgotten by her feet. Behind her, the shadows gathered, moving with a sentience of their own. Melanie fumbled with her keys, the cold metal slipping through her fingers as the shadows swirled ever closer. She knew instinctively, deep in the marrow of her bones, that once inside, the door had to stay shut. Fear, however, does not make the fingers nimble. As the shadows edged dangerously close, curling around the frame of the hallway, Melanie finally managed to wrench the door open and slam it shut behind her. Breathless, she leaned against the wooden surface, heart pounding against her ribs. The silence now wasn't peaceful, nor was it comforting. It felt like the ominous pause before a storm's fury, a quiet that spoke of chaos waiting to erupt. Through the peephole, first lighted from the buzzing hall lamps, shadows quivered and danced before receding slowly down the corridor, leaving behind only emptiness. Though relatively safe, Melanie understood now that the night carried whispers of ancient things, and her neighbor's words, cryptic as they were, held a weight she could no longer ignore. No longer just curious, she was aware, painfully so, that something beyond understanding sought entry, always prowling, always searching. The banana bread might have grown cold, just like the lingering thoughts of what the future holds in the eerie quiet of the Ravenbrook apartments.